We just watched Asteroid City.
The latest and greatest from Wes Anderson. This movie is about a father, played by Jason Schwartzman. He is taking his kids, 3 little girls and 1 brainiac son, to a science convention celebration sort of thing going on in Asteroid City, this middle of nowhere sort of town. Their car breaks down, they kind of get stuck there, they kind of get quarantined there for some other reasons, and before the trip can even really begin, Jason Schwartzman has to tell his kids that their mother died.
Ooh.
But that's not all that's going on in this movie, because there's also a dual narrative thing going on. This whole movie is contextualized as a play being broadcast, and so we're also getting black and white scenes with a narrator played by Bryan Cranston, and the writer of the play, and you see basically how the play came to be.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like a documentary, a drama, a play, and a movie.
And it's all fictional, yeah.
And
none of it's real.
All at the same time. There's a star-studded cast here, Braden, from the likes of Willem Dafoe to Walter White himself, Bryan Cranston.
Almost too many actors to really name. We can't name them all right now.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Just look at the poster, you'll get them all. Scarlett Johansson.
We could just put them up right here.
Yeah. Here they all are. Every one of them.
Nice.
Everyone in the movie. All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Every single one.
So, Braden, you mentioned this is the latest and greatest from Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say latest. We'll figure out about greatest later.
Okay.
I will say, though, I haven't seen all of his movies. I've seen Moonrise Kingdom.
Okay.
Some other ones, probably.
Moonrise Kingdom and whatever.
Yeah, and then whatever else this guy's made.
Yeah.
I know that he's pretty famous as one of the more art house, modern age art house directors.
Yeah, and he's got his very distinct style, which is present in this film.
All right, Braden, give me your opinion on this movie.
I kind of loved this movie. It might have been one of my favorite movie-going experiences this year. I'm not going to say it's a perfect movie, and I'm not going to say it's the best from Wes Anderson, but I was kind of glued to the screen the entire time, and I was just excited by how weird this movie was and the way it told its plot.
Yeah, we had pretty different experiences, Braden.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I will say, I generally had a pretty positive experience with the movie, but parts of it kind of dragged for me. Now, it's been a little while since I've really watched an artsy kind of movie.
Okay.
And this movie, it makes sense because it is technically based on a play, even though it's not a real play.
Yeah.
There's parts in it that feel very much like a play.
Yeah. You can see that in the style. Wes Anderson's style kind of lends itself to a play, with the symmetrical shots and stuff like that, the bright colors and stuff. But even just the storytelling and the blocking kind of feels like a play sometimes.
And I will say, I was fairly engaged throughout the movie, but the first half of the movie, I was really kind of just where is this going? What's the point? And then once we get to the point with with Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson, I liked a lot of that stuff.
Right.
And I also like when we get to the point with the alien. I'm just going to get into spoilers because I think that's sort of...
Let's just talk about the movie.
Yeah, let's just talk about the movie. I like all the alien stuff just because it was silly. It was nice to throw in some claymation there.
I like that he's played by Jeff Goldblum. They reveal that at the end of the movie.
Yes.
He's just sitting in a chair talking about his character. You mentioned that you were thinking, where is this going throughout the first half of this movie? That was one of my favorite parts, I think, about this movie, is this movie has very unclear themes and it's not as direct. It's not very hand-holdy, I would say. There's movies out there and good movies that have really clear narrative themes, really clear, this is where the movie's headed, this is the lesson the character needs to learn. And this movie is so character driven that oftentimes it just lets the movie speak for itself. I left this movie with my girlfriend and we both walked out, and she was like, what was that about? And we both started talking about our interpretations of the movie, and they were both wildly different. And because the movie's not explicitly telling you what it's about, both of our takes were super valid. You know what I mean?
No, it's fair that it's not hand-holdy, and I don't need a narrative explained to me verbatim every time I watch it. But walking out of this, it was more just oh, I just watched a movie. You know, I wasn't as invested, I think, in all of the plot lines and stuff. Now, I think it may have just also been the theater I was in, that it was kind of an older crowd. People weren't really the vibe in the theater just was not quite there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking about some of his other movies like Fantastic Mr. Fox
Yeah.
and Moonrise Kingdom, I think those are the only other ones I've seen.
Okay.
Even though those aren't like hand-holdy in
Yeah.
their plot, I think it's just a little easier to follow and kept me a little more entertained than this movie did.
I do think this movie is sort of crippled by being directed by Wes Anderson in a way, because his other movies are so iconic and great. Like, this movie is very subdued compared to his other movies, and I think that kind of shows. Like, Budapest, you look at it, instantly you're like, this is iconic from it. I instantly love this character, and this character. Whereas, like, I'm not sure Jason Schwartzman character has that appeal that the hotel manager in Budapest has,
Or
or
the Fox.
Fantastic Mr. Fox, or any of the characters in Isle of the Dogs, you know?
Now, again, there is stuff that I really like. There is the alien stuff. There's the stuff with Scarlett Johansson. There's the part where he speaks with Margot Robbie at the end and talks about like a scene that was cut from the play. That was probably my favorite part of the movie.
Definitely.
But overall, I walked out, and I know Bryan Cranston's even said that you should watch this movie twice to really understand it. I feel like if I watched it twice, I would have kind of a totally different opinion on it.
That's another thing, because we're probably going to get into like our interpretations of the film and the themes and stuff. And I feel like kind of wary about going into that, just because I watched it all the way through, and at the end I was like, oh man, like I think I've pieced it together. I think I have my interpretation, but I was like, what does this scene mean? What does this scene mean? Why did he kiss Jason Schwartzman at the beginning? You know, like, what's that about?
Now, see, this brings me to a point, and I know that I'm probably just like totally misunderstanding it, and like you just don't get it, bro. But like, some of the movie just felt like it was being weird art housey to be weird art housey, which is fine, but it in a way felt to me like it was a bit of a cop-out to just be like, oh, we don't really know what this movie's about. But I mean, that's the fun of these kind of movies, too.
Right.
So again, I'm not even really taking off points for that.
Yeah.
It's just more, you know, it felt a little pretentious to me at parts.
Okay.
Which I think is, I mean, it just lends itself to like this kind of movie.
Right.
And again, maybe I don't get it. Maybe I just need to see it again and I'll fall in love with it. But like, you know, this is sort of like a random movie that maybe this movie is not connected to at all, but this movie makes me think of like Paris, Texas. Okay. You know, I think possibly just because it's like visual and stuff, and like there's a lot to interpret out of that kind of
right, character driven.
Yeah. But I feel like that movie kind of executes some of the stuff here better. Like, for instance, I didn't really care about any of the kid characters in the movie. Like the Brainiac group, I didn't care about them at all.
Oh, I loved them. I think what this movie does for me, at least, is you said pretentious. I never found it too pretentious because I found a lot of the characters so like entertaining and like silly and funny. Like it still maintains like a cartoony vibe and that Wes Anderson sort of whimsy or whatever to all of its characters without like without like compromising on story, without making it so silly that there's nothing to unpack here. You know, like I found this to be a pretty dense movie, and all of the extra side characters, some of them are there for comedic flavor and some of them have their own plot lines that lend itself to the themes. And
yeah, you know, that reminds me, because there are a bunch of like little interesting side characters. There's like Jeffrey Wright's character.
Right.
There's, I don't remember the actor's name, but I really like this one scene where there's this guy who's always asking people to dare him to do stuff.
Yes.
And then he like reveals like why. He's like, I just don't want to be forgotten. And so okay, let's talk a little bit about our interpretation of the movie.
Okay.
From what I've come away from it, it's with it being this whole documentary within a play, within a movie, ultimately, I think it's from the perspective of the artist. Like, why create something? Why find... Because usually artists create something to try and find the meaning in their lives.
Right.
And you can even see that with, like, the performers in this movie, trying to find the meanings of moments in the play and stuff that confuses them. And I think it's just about living the art and letting that be sort of part of it that gets you to figure out the meaning in it.
Definitely.
That's what I got from it.
I 100% agree with that. I think there's just a little more to it. Like there's an extra layer to that too, because you have that. You have the interpretation of this is a movie essentially commentating about finding something out of nothing or whatever. You know, they go to this middle of nowhere town and then they find these connections or whatever. But you also have this little backstory about grief, you know, with Jason Schwartzman's character. You know, we have the mom character who he's afraid to tell his kids that she died. He's a character who like can't communicate very well. And then a lot of the play stuff I found was like a cool narrative way in like a really creative way to like show some of the ways he can't comprehend his emotions and stuff. You have that one scene where it's in the black and white. It's the director talking to all the actors, and he's talking about sleep. He wants a scene where everyone goes to sleep in one scene, and he wants that scene to sort of I forget what he wants it to like represent or whatever. But then Willem Dafoe comes out and he starts talking to the actors about what does it mean to sleep, you know? What does it mean? And he's like, the body's still working even when you're asleep, so you start awake. And then you get that great quote of like, they repeat it a bunch, and they all like
I was
to the
trying to
camera.
remember what that was.
It's, you can't wake up if you don't go to sleep. And so that kind of summarized the movie for me. And within this scene of them trying to like, with him explaining that with sleep you're still always working, it sort of felt like that's what the Asteroid City is, you know? They're in this quarantine. They're not moving forward, you know? But they're still moving forward in a way. Subconsciously, Jason Schwartzman is talking about his wife and talking about his problems through Scarlett Johansson's character, and the Brainiac characters are sort of working that through and learning to connect with people. You know, he finds a girlfriend and stuff like that. So that's that other layer that I think this movie is also kind of about. There's probably even more that I'm not picking up, though.
I feel like I would like us to watch this again together and sort of see what we pull from it that time. Just a thing I want to mention. There are some very random moments in this movie. There is a part where Scarlett Johansson just does full frontal nudity for like a second. And not that I have any problem with that, but I just felt like mentioning it because it was so surprising. That I was like, oh, they just did that just out of nowhere. And I think the movie isn't R-rated.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be. I don't.
Yeah, whatever.
Probably
I mean,
if it's nudity.
It's fine if it's not or like whatever. It's just I wanted to mention just that there are a few kind of bizarre moments in this movie.
Right. I know you said you're a little less familiar with Wes Anderson than maybe I am, and like I think that's kind of typical for his movies. He likes just throwing in some shocking stuff. You know, a lot of his style is very like symmetrical and stilted, but at the same time, then you throw in like, oh, someone's gonna say this word, and it just takes you by surprise. You know, I want to talk about the scene of Jason Schwartzman and talking to the mom, like the actress of the mom in the black and white stuff. I thought that scene was like so clever because it's like Jason Schwartzman is like, he's in it, we start off in the play and then he walks out of the play because he doesn't understand his character's motivations, right? And it's like, if you're analyzing it from this sort of like meta commentary, the play is within this black and white scene or whatever, it's like Jason Schwartzman has been playing this character that can't communicate, and it's been easy for him because he's disconnected from the wife. And then he has to like go and talk to the actress of the wife, and it's almost like he's like remembering the wife through like seeing this like and having this cut scene described to him. Like the cut scene is his memory of the wife that then the actor uses to portray the character later. It's just like, that's genius. You know what I mean?
That's like a triple layer cake.
Exactly.
Of a movie scene. Yeah. I will say, I think that is my favorite scene in the movie.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely for me too.
Ratings time.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give this movie, I think, a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
I want to see it again, and my rating could even go up, but I think, honestly, I'm pretty set on it being a 4 out of 5. I think there is more to unpack, and I think I could enjoy it more, but I'm already enjoying the fact that, like, I don't get it, so...
Give it a 3.5.
Okay.
Again, I'm with you in the point that I could see it maybe going up on another viewing of it. Just as far as a viewing experience, it didn't like blow me away. But I mean, I think it was worth watching, and I enjoyed it enough to not dislike the movie.
Hey, I mean, that's good enough. That's a pretty good score, 3.5.
That's all you can ask sometimes.
Right.
And like I said, I could see it going up. I would like us to watch this movie together and see our opinion on it.
Hell yeah. I'm down to.
All right.
Well, let's go do that, Benani.
Let's bid adieu. Adieu? We said at the same time. Wow.
Adieu.